Hoover Dam is a concrete arch gravity dam in the Black Canyon of the Colorado River, on the border between the U.S. states of Nevada and Arizona. It was constructed between 1931 and 1936 during the Great Depression and was dedicated on September 30, 1935, by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Its construction was the result of a massive effort involving thousands of workers and cost over 100 lives. It was referred to as Hoover Dam after President Herbert Hoover in bills passed by Congress during its construction, but was named Boulder Dam by the Roosevelt administration. The Hoover Dam name was restored by Congress in 1947. Since about 1900, the Black Canyon and nearby Boulder Canyon had been investigated for their potential to support a dam that would control floods, provide irrigation water, and produce hydroelectric power. In 1928, Congress authorized the project. The winning bid to build the dam was submitted by a consortium named Six Companies Incorporated, which began construction of the dam in early 1931. Such a large concrete structure had never been built before, and some of the techniques were unproven. The torrid summer weather and lack of facilities near the site also presented difficulties. Nevertheless, Six Companies turned the dam over to the federal government on March 1, 1936, more than 2 years ahead of schedule. Hoover Dam impounds Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the United States by volume when full. The dam is located near Boulder City, Nevada, a municipality originally constructed for workers on the construction project, about 30 miles southeast of Las Vegas, Nevada. The dam's generators provide power for public and private utilities in Nevada, Arizona, and California. Hoover Dam is a major tourist attraction. Nearly 1 million people tour the dam each year. The heavily traveled U.S. route along the dam's crest until October 2010, when the Hoover Dam bypass opened. As the United States developed the Southwest, the Colorado River was seen as a potential source of irrigation water. An initial attempt at diverting the river for irrigation purposes occurred in the late 1890s, when land speculator William Beatty built the Alamo Canal just north of the Mexican border. The canal dipped into Mexico before running to a desolate area Beatty named the Imperial Valley. Though water from the Imperial Canal allowed for the widespread settlement of the valley, the canal proved expensive to operate. After a catastrophic breach that caused the Colorado River to fill the Salton Sea, the Southern Pacific Railroad spent $3 million in 1906 and 1907 to stabilize the waterway, an amount it hoped in vain would be reimbursed by the federal government. Even after the waterway was stabilized, it proved unsatisfactory because of constant disputes with landowners on the Mexican side of the border. As the technology of electric power transmission improved, the Lower Colorado was considered for its hydroelectric power potential. In 1902, the Edison Electric Company of Los Angeles surveyed the river in the hope of building a 40-foot rock dam that could generate 10,000 horsepower. However, at the time, the limit of transmission of electric power was 80 miles, and there were few customers within that limit. Edison allowed land options it held on the river to lapse, including an option for what became the site of Hoover Dam. In the following years, the Bureau of Reclamation, known as the Reclamation Service at the time, also considered the Lower Colorado as the site for a dam. Service Chief Arthur Powell Davis proposed using dynamite to collapse the walls of Boulder Canyon, 20 miles north of the eventual dam site, into the river. The river would carry off the smaller pieces of debris, and a dam would be built incorporating the remaining rubble. In 1922, after considering it for several years, the Reclamation Service finally rejected the proposal, citing doubts about the unproven technique and questions as to whether it would, in fact, save money. Before the dam could be built, the Colorado River needed to be diverted away from the construction site. To accomplish this, 4 diversion tunnels were driven through the canyon walls, 2 on the Nevada side and 2 on the Arizona side. These tunnels were 56 feet in diameter. Their combined length was nearly 16,000 feet or more than 3 miles. The contract required these tunnels to be completed by October 1, 1933, with a $3,000 per day fine to be assessed for any delay. To meet the deadline, 6 companies had to complete work by early 1933, since only in late fall and winter was the water level in the river low enough to safely divert. Tunneling began at the lower portals of the Nevada tunnels in May 1931. Shortly afterward, work began on 2 similar tunnels in the Arizona Canyon wall. In March 1932, work began on lining the tunnels with concrete. First, the base, or invert, was poured. Gantry cranes, running on rails through the entire length of each tunnel, were used to place the concrete. The sidewalls were poured next. Movable sections of steel forms were used for the sidewalls. Finally, using pneumatic guns, the overheads were filled in. The concrete lining is 3 feet thick, reducing the finished tunnel diameter to 50 feet. The river was diverted into the 2 Arizona tunnels on November 13, 1932. The Nevada tunnels were kept in reserve for high water. This was done by exploding a temporary cofferdam protecting the Arizona tunnels, while at the same time dumping rubble into the river until its natural course was blocked. Following the completion of the dam, the entrances to the 2 outer diversion tunnels were sealed at the opening and halfway through the tunnels with large concrete plugs. The downstream halves of the tunnels following the inner plugs are now the main bodies of the spillway tunnels. The inner diversion tunnels were plugged at approximately 1/3 of their length, beyond which they now carry steel pipes connecting the intake towers to the power plant and outlet works. The inner tunnels outlets are equipped with gates that can be closed to drain the tunnels for maintenance. Excavation for the powerhouse was carried out simultaneously with the excavation for the dam foundation and abutments. The excavation of this U-shaped structure located at the downstream toe of the dam was completed in late 1933, with the first concrete placed in November 1933. The filling of Lake Mead began on February 1, 1935, even before the last of the concrete was poured that May. The powerhouse was one of the projects uncompleted at the time of the formal dedication on September 30, 1935. A crew of 500 men remained to finish it and other structures. To make the powerhouse roof bomb-proof, it was constructed of layers of concrete, rock, and steel, with a total thickness of about 3.5 feet, topped with layers of sand and tar. In the latter half of 1936, water levels in Lake Mead were high enough to permit power generation, and the first three Allis-Chalmers-built Francis turbine generators, all on the Nevada side, began operating. In March 1937, one more Nevada generator went online, and the first Arizona generator by August. By September 1939, 4 more generators were operating, and the dam's power plant became the largest hydroelectricity facility in the world. The final generator was not placed in service until 1961, bringing the maximum generating capacity to 1,345 megawatts at the time. Original plans called for 16 large generators, 8 on each side of the river, but 2 smaller generators were installed instead of one large one on the Arizona side, for a total of 17. The smaller generators were used to serve smaller communities at a time when the output of each generator was dedicated to a single municipality, before the dam's total power output was placed on the grid and made arbitrarily distributable. Before water from Lake Mead reaches the turbines, it enters the intake towers, and then 4 gradually narrowing penstocks which funnel the water down towards the powerhouse. The intakes provide a maximum hydraulic head of 590 feet, as the water reaches a speed of about 85 miles per hour. The entire flow of the Colorado River usually passes through the turbines. The jet flow gates, located in concrete structures 180 feet above the river and also at the outlets of the inner diversion tunnels at river level, may be used to divert water around the dam in emergency or flood conditions, but have never done so, and in practice are used only to drain water from the penstocks for maintenance. Following an uprating project from 1986 to 1993, the total gross power rating for the plant, including 2 2.4 megawatt Pelton turbine generators that power Hoover Dam's own operations, are a maximum capacity of 2080 megawatts. The annual generation of Hoover Dam varies. The maximum net generation was 10.348 TWh in 1984, and the minimum since 1940 was 2.648 TWh in 1956. The average power generated was 4.2 TWh per year from 1947 to 2008. In 2015, the dam generated 3.6 TWh. The amount of electricity generated by Hoover Dam has been decreasing, along with the falling water level in Lake Mead, due to the prolonged drought since the year 2000, and a high demand for the Colorado River's water. By 2014 its generating capacity was downrated by 23% to 1592 MW, and was providing power only during periods of peak demand. Lake Mead fell to a new record low elevation of 1,071.61 feet on July 1, 2016, before beginning to rebound slowly. Under its original design, the dam would no longer be able to generate power once the water level fell below 1,050 feet, which might have occurred in 2017 had water restrictions not been enforced. To lower the minimum power pool elevation from 1,050 to 950 feet, 5 Whitehead turbines, designed to work efficiently with less flow, were installed. Water levels were maintained at over 1,075 feet in 2018 and 2019, but fell to a new record low of 1,071 feet on June 10, 2021, and were projected to fall below 1,066 feet by the end of 2021. Control of water was the primary concern in the building of the dam. Power generation has allowed the dam project to be self-sustaining. Proceeds from the sale of power repaid the 50-year construction loan, and those revenues also financed the multi-million-dollar yearly maintenance budget. Power is generated in step with, and only with the release of water, in response to downstream water demands. Lake Mead and downstream releases from the dam also provide water for both municipal and irrigation uses. Water released from the Hoover Dam eventually reaches several canals. The Colorado River Aqueduct and Central Arizona Project branch off Lake Havasu, while the All-American Canal is supplied by the Imperial Dam. In total, water from Lake Mead serves 18 million people in Arizona, Nevada, and California, and supplies the irrigation of over 1 million acres of land. In 2018, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power proposed a $3 billion pumped hydro storage project, a battery of sorts that would use wind and solar power to recirculate water back up to Lake Mead from a pumping station 20 miles downriver. Electricity from the dam's powerhouse was originally sold pursuant to a 50-year contract authorized by Congress in 1934, which ran from 1937 to 1987. In 1984, Congress passed a new statute that set power allocations to Southern California, Arizona, and Nevada from the dam from 1987 to 2017. The powerhouse was run under the original authorization by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and Southern California Edison. In 1987, the Bureau of Reclamation assumed control. In 2011, Congress enacted legislation extending the current contracts until 2067, after setting aside 5% of Hoover Dam's power for sale to Native American tribes, electric cooperatives, and other entities. The initial plans for the facade of the dam, the power plant, the outlet tunnels, and ornaments clashed with the modern look of an arch dam. The Bureau of Reclamation, more concerned with the dam's functionality, adorned it with a Gothic-inspired balustrade and eagle statues. This initial design was criticized by many as being too plain and unremarkable for a project of such immense scale, so Los Angeles-based architect Gordon B. Kaufman, then the supervising architect to the Bureau of Reclamation, was brought in to redesign the exteriors. Kaufman greatly streamlined the design and applied an elegant Art Deco style to the entire project. He designed sculpted turrets rising seamlessly from the dam face and clock faces on the intake towers set for the time in Nevada and Arizona. Both states are in different time zones, but since Arizona does not observe daylight saving time, the clocks display the same time for more than half the year. At Kaufman's request, Denver artist Alan Tupper True was hired to handle the design and decoration of the walls and floors of the new dam. True's design scheme incorporated motifs of the Navajo and Pueblo tribes of the region. Although some were initially opposed to these designs, True was given the go-ahead and was officially appointed consulting artist. With the assistance of the National Laboratory of Anthropology, True researched authentic decorative motifs from Indian sand paintings, textiles, baskets, and ceramics. The images and colors are based on Native American visions of rain, lightning, water, clouds, and local animals, lizards, serpents, birds, and on the southwestern landscape of stepped mesas. In these works, which are integrated into the walkways and interior halls of the dam, True also reflected on the machinery of the operation, making the symbolic patterns appear both ancient and modern. With the agreement of Kaufman and the engineers, True also devised for the pipes and machinery an innovative color coding which was implemented throughout all bore projects. True's consulting artist job lasted through 1942. It was extended so he could complete design work for the Parker, Shasta, and Grand Coulee dams and power plants. True's work on the Hoover Dam was humorously referred to in a poem published in The New Yorker, part of which read, "Lose the spark, and justify the dream," but also worthy of remark will be the color scheme. Complementing Kaufman and True's work, sculptor Oscar J. W. Hansen designed many of the sculptures on and around the dam. His works include the monument of the Dedication Plaza, a plaque to memorialize the workers killed, and the bas-reliefs on the elevator towers. In his words, Hansen wanted his work to express the immutable calm of intellectual resolution and the enormous power of trained physical strength, equally enthroned in placid triumph of scientific accomplishment, because the building of Hoover Dam belongs to the sagas of the daring. Hansen's Dedication Plaza, on the Nevada abutment, contains a sculpture of two winged figures flanking a flagpole. Surrounding the base of the monument is a terrazzo floor embedded with a star map. The map depicts the northern hemisphere sky at the moment of President Roosevelt's dedication to the dam. This is intended to help future astronomers, if necessary, calculate the exact date of dedication. The 30-foot-high bronze figures, dubbed winged figures of the Republic, were both formed in a continuous pour. To put such large bronzes into place without marring the highly polished bronze surface, they were placed on ice and guided into position as the ice melted. Hansen's bas-relief on the Nevada elevator tower depicts the benefits of the dam: flood control, navigation, irrigation, water storage, and power. The bas-relief on the Arizona elevator depicts, in his words, the visages of those Indian tribes who have inhabited mountains and plains from ages distant. With most work finished on the dam itself, the powerhouse remained uncompleted. A formal dedication ceremony was arranged for September 30, 1935, to coincide with a Western tour being made by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. The morning of the dedication, it was moved forward 3 hours from 2 p.m. Pacific Time to 11 a.m. This was done because Secretary of the Interior Harold Dellekes had reserved a radio slot for the President for 2 p.m., but officials did not realize until the day of the ceremony that the slot was for 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Despite the change in the ceremony time and temperatures of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, 10,000 people were present for the President's speech, in which he avoided mentioning the name of former President Hoover, who was not invited to the ceremony. To mark the occasion, a 3-cent stamp was issued by the United States Post Office Department bearing the name Boulder Dam, the official name of the dam between 1933 and 1947. After the ceremony, Roosevelt made the first visit by any American president to Las Vegas. Most works had been completed by the dedication, and 6 companies negotiated with the government through late 1935 and early 1936 to settle all claims and arrange for the formal transfer of the dam to the federal government. The parties came to an agreement, and on March 1, 1936, Secretary Keyes formally accepted the dam on behalf of the government. 6 companies were not required to complete work on one item, the concrete plug for one of the bypass tunnels, as the tunnel had to be used to take in irrigation water until the powerhouse went into operation. The dam is protected against overtopping by 2 spillways. The spillway entrances are located behind each dam abutment, running roughly parallel to the canyon walls. The spillway entrance arrangement forms a classic side flow weir, with each spillway containing 4 100-foot-long and 16-foot-wide steel drum gates. Each gate weighs 5 million pounds and can be operated manually or automatically. Gates are raised and lowered depending on water levels in the reservoir and flood conditions. The gates cannot entirely prevent water from entering the spillways, but can maintain an extra 16 feet of lake level. Water flowing over the spillways falls dramatically into 600-foot-long, 50-foot-wide spillway tunnels before connecting to the outer diversion tunnels and re-entering the main river channel below the dam. This complex spillway entrance arrangement, combined with the approximate 700-foot elevation drop from the top of the reservoir to the river below, was a difficult engineering problem and posed numerous design challenges. Each spillway's capacity of 200,000 feet was empirically verified in post-construction tests in 1941. The large spillway tunnels have only been used twice, for testing in 1941 and because of flooding in 1983. Both times, when inspecting the tunnels after the spillways were used, engineers found major damage to the concrete linings and underlying rock. The 1941 damage was attributed to a slight misalignment of the tunnel invert, which caused cavitation, a phenomenon in fast-flowing liquids in which vapor bubbles collapse with explosive force. In response to this finding, the tunnels were patched with special heavy-duty concrete, and the surface of the concrete was polished mirror smooth. The spillways were modified in 1947 by adding flip buckets, which both slowed the water and decreased the spillway's effective capacity, in an attempt to eliminate conditions thought to have contributed to the 1941 damage. The 1983 damage, also due to cavitation, led to the installation of aerators in the spillways. Tests at Grand Coulee Dam showed that the technique worked, in principle. There are 2 lanes for automobile traffic across the top of the dam, which formerly served as the Colorado River crossing for US Route 93. In the wake of the September 11 terrorist attacks, authorities expressed security concerns, and the Hoover Dam bypass project was expedited. Pending the completion of the bypass, restricted traffic was permitted over Hoover Dam. Some types of vehicles were inspected prior to crossing the dam, while semi-trailer trucks, buses carrying luggage, and enclosed box trucks over 40 feet long were not allowed on the dam at all, and were diverted to US Route 95 or Nevada State Routes 163-68. The 4-lane Hoover Dam bypass opened on October 19, 2010. It includes a composite steel and concrete arch bridge, the Mecco Callahan Pat Tillman Memorial Bridge, 1,500 feet downstream from the dam. With the opening of the bypass, through traffic is no longer allowed across Hoover Dam. Dam visitors are allowed to use the existing roadway to approach from the Nevada side and cross to parking lots and other facilities on the Arizona side. Hoover Dam opened for tours in 1937 after its completion, but following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, it was closed to the public when the United States entered World War II, during which only authorized traffic, in convoys, was permitted. After the war, it reopened on September 2, 1945, and by 1953, annual attendance had risen to 448,081. The dam closed on November 25, 1963, and March 31, 1969, days of mourning in remembrance of Presidents Kennedy and Eisenhower. In 1995, a new visitors center was built, and the following year, visits exceeded 1 million for the first time. The dam closed again to the public on September 11, 2001. Modified tours were resumed in December, and a new discovery tour was added the following year. Today, nearly 1 million people per year take tours of the dam offered by the Bureau of Reclamation. Increased security concerns by the government have led to most of the interior structures being inaccessible to tourists. As a result, few of tours' decorations can now be seen by visitors. Visitors can only purchase tickets on site and have the option of a guided tour of the whole facility or only the power plant area. The only self-guided tour option is for the visitor center itself, where visitors can view various exhibits and enjoy a 360-degree view of the dam. The changes in water flow and use caused by Hoover Dam's construction and operation have had a large impact on the Colorado River Delta. The construction of the dam has been implicated in causing the decline of this estuarine ecosystem. For 6 years after the construction of the dam, while Lake Mead was filled, virtually no water reached the mouth of the river. The delta's estuary, which once had a freshwater-saltwater mixing zone stretching 40 miles south of the river's mouth, was turned into an inverse estuary, where the level of salinity was higher close to the river's mouth. The Colorado River had experienced natural flooding before the construction of the Hoover Dam. The dam eliminated the natural flooding, threatening many species adapted to the flooding, including both plants and animals. The construction of the dam devastated the populations of native fish in the river downstream from the dam. 4 species of fish native to the Colorado River, the bony-tailed chub, Colorado picamino, humpback chub, and razorback sucker, are listed as endangered.